This road itself gives me a lot of energy because there are people who are always talking about something new, something innovative, and it cannot happen without other investors betting on you, backing you. And that's why this is a class that excites me a lot, because these are supporting the founders who are sculpting the better tomorrow, and we also want to be a part of their journey.
You are listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur, a podcast for founders with ambitious ideas. Venture capital investors and other early believers tell you relatable, insightful, and authentic stories to help you realize your vision. Welcome to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Gopi Rangan. My guest today is Lochan Alagh. She's the co-founder and managing partner at VC Nest. She's had a very interesting journey all the way from India. She now lives in Silicon Valley, and VC Nest is located actually on University Avenue in Palo Alto, right in the middle of Silicon Valley. What is VC Nest? How did she envision starting VC Nest, and what's the purpose of the organization? We're going to talk about a lot of that. But let's start with her, get to know her first before we go into more details. Lochan, welcome to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur.
Thank you, Gopi. Thank you for inviting me.
Tell us about yourself. You grew up in a small town in India called Panipat. Then you had amazing educational background, and more recently you moved to the US, and now you're established yourself in Silicon Valley. But let's start with your journey from where you grew up. Tell us a little more about that.
Gopi, I grew up in a small town called Panipat. Panipat is very famous for three historical battles, and I'm a daughter of doctors. So my parents absolutely wanted me to become a doctor, but I took a different route. I studied at IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and after that, I joined as a scientist for Ministry of Environment and Forests. I'm sure you have been meeting a lot of techies here, but I am little unconventional here. I joined Ministry of Environment and Forest for the conservation of River Ganga. It is, a well-known river. It is supporting the lifelines of millions of individuals in India. And I thought that my life is set. I joined a central government job. It was very valuable for the work I was doing. But my parents had different plans for me. They found a guy in Silicon Valley. And when I met him for the first time, I didn't even know a lot about Silicon Valley. And honestly, I didn't know the Thumb Bay area. He told me about that. And yeah, it was an arranged marriage. I kind of agreed to that. Now I think of that, I was like, wow, I was very brave doing that. But I moved here, and first year as a dependent spouse was very challenging. I moved here on H4 visa. I did not know driving, and I did not know anyone in the entire United States. And since it was an arranged marriage and my husband given a techie, we didn't have a lot of conversation before the marriage. So a brave me moved to the United States in 2015. It's going to be 10 years soon. Initial few months were challenging, but it was the best time for me to move to the United States, especially given my background in environmental conservation. California was hit by major drought in 2015, and they were looking for people with water conservation and environmental conservation background. So I started working for a nonprofit called Sustainable Silicon Valley, and we were working with Governor Brown's office to lay down the guidelines on water conservation for commercial properties and residential properties here in the valley and in entire California. As soon as I got my work permit, it was a good time. I started a startup. The executive director of the nonprofit laid down the vision. She shared that vision with me, and she brought me in as a founding member of that startup. It was an environmental consulting company. And as per EPA mandate, small and medium businesses had to submit sustainability reports to EPA, and we were preparing those sustainability reports. A small startup, we started growing, and due to regulatory changes, we had a new government came in, and EPA had not that mandate anymore. So we had to pivot, but our startup could not survive for a long time. Things started going south. And I then joined another startup, a cybersecurity company with Pradeep Aswani. That actually gave me a real flavor of Silicon Valley. I joined as a business strategy and operations head there, worked very closely with the founder, and he has been a serial entrepreneur in the Valley. So this was his fifth startup. And our startup was doing really well. After 3 years, we had a phenomenal exit. I actually truly experienced the Silicon Valley startup culture through that startup. So I was there. Our company had a great exit. And after that, I joined Ingram Micro. In a startup, we were running at 120 miles an hour. And at a big company, when a startup gets acquired, you're just part of a small team. And I wasn't enjoying that. So everything slowed down. We were spending more time on processes rather than, getting actual things done. So I went to Pradeep. I was like, Pradeep, I'm not having fun anymore. And he introduced me to a group of phenomenal Indian entrepreneurs who have built multiple companies, seen failures and successes actually. Some of them even took their companies public. They started a platform called FalconX, and they had a vision of helping upcoming generation of entrepreneurs, primarily in the B2B space. So they all had vision, but they didn't have anyone who could execute their vision. So I was brought in FalconX as a first person, and I started working with these phenomenal group of entrepreneurs. I was there for 5 years, and that journey was remarkable because it not only gave me a chance to work with upcoming entrepreneurs and work closely with them to think how new founders are thinking, what are upcoming trends, what are upcoming technologies, but it also gave me a chance to learn from existing successful entrepreneurs, get to understand what their mindset is, how they became successful. And also, when you are in that culture, that entrepreneurial bug sometimes kicks in you as well. And that inspired me to start VC Nest. But there has been small twist in that journey as well. Before starting VC Nest, I joined MDSV as a partner in this fund of funds. So we have been investing in emerging fund managers. And I have been talking to a lot of fund managers and realized that there is a gap. Working with founders at FalconX, I realized that as founders, when you are early on your journey, you're working on your story, you're working on your product, you're trying to understand what the market looks like. But when you're going to investors, you're actually selling your product. When you become a fund manager, you are trying to sell just yourself, your vision. And it becomes a very different journey. I see a lot of similarities between emerging fund managers and early startup founders because you're also trying to walk on a journey by yourself and trying to do something different. Fund managers support the entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are building amazing technologies. But at the same time, when you're starting new, it's very challenging. And the support is needed at both the areas. For startup founders, I saw that there are a lot of accelerators and incubators. But for emerging fund managers, there has not been a community supported by real estate where fund managers can actually come collaborate with one another. And that gave me an idea of if these fund managers are truly supporting the founders, why don't we support these fund managers? And that was the origin of VC Nest. I was fortunate that I got a good location on University Avenue, and my partner Badru Balani, who has also been an entrepreneur himself, actually he truly believed in this vision, and that's how we started VC Nest.
Fantastic. What an amazing story. Just like any immigrant parents, your parents wanted you to become a doctor, just like them. I am pretty sure now they are very proud of you. Although you didn't become a doctor, the number of things you've accomplished and the zigs and zags in your journey across the world is just absolutely fascinating. I see that you've touched water conservation on the public sector side, and later on the nonprofit side in the US. And you touched the startup world and the techie side, and accelerator side on the startup, fund of funds, and now starting your own, actually pioneering, if I may say, a new way of supporting fund managers as an emerging manager myself. And I wish VC Nest existed when I started my own firm 6 years ago. This is exactly what the world needs today because the community is screaming for someone to put together an organization like VC Nest. And I'm delighted that you are doing that. I want to ask more about that, but let's start with some of the basics. Why is venture capital interesting to you?
As I said, that this is a cycle. If I am a founder and if I'm working on a bigger vision, I cannot do it without supportive partners. And investors play a very important role. We are in Silicon Valley. We are building the best technologies. We are working on breakthrough innovations. And it cannot be done alone. There are investors who are willing to take bets on amazing founders. Not only just bets, they are their partners throughout their journey. People are not able to work on a brighter future if this ecosystem doesn't exist. And that's why venture capital plays a very important role because These breakthrough innovations need a lot of funding, and that comes from this asset class. Like right now, I'm interviewing here with you, sitting on University Avenue. We are just 5 minutes away from Stanford. This road itself gives me a lot of energy because there are people who are always talking about something new, something innovative, and it cannot happen without other investors betting on you, backing you. And that's why this is a class that excites me a lot, because these are supporting the founders who are sculpting the better tomorrow, and we also want to be a part of their journey.
For all these reasons, I love venture capital as well. As a VC who invests early in startups, I get the privilege of watching these companies grow from scratch, and many of them make it big. It's a privilege to have the opportunity to do that, and even
Absolutely.
better when I'm able to invest and actively participate.
It's not only about returns, it's about the impact these companies can make. Like Zoom, it was such a powerful tool that kept everyone connected during pandemic. No one was expecting that the entire globe would be in silo during the pandemic, and this technology kept everyone united. Now, there is truly a power. A lot of founders I meet, they're doing phenomenal research on cancer, on diseases that have never been cured, on brain sciences, and VCs are truly backing these founders. It's not only about just the financial return, it's also the impact that this asset class makes on, humanity overall.
Yeah, it's at the forefront of innovation. What are some challenges that you notice among emerging managers? Let me clarify who emerging managers are. Emerging managers are VCs who are starting new venture capital firms. And they are called emerging managers because they manage money, and they are emerging because they haven't established themselves yet, and they are new in their journey of starting a firm. The other side of the market would be established managers. These are big brands that have existed for a long time and they have multiple funds under their firm. So let's talk about emerging managers and what challenges do they face. Lochan, you've seen many, many emerging managers through the fund of funds and now through VC Nest. What are challenges that they face?
I would even classify emerging fund managers into two categories. There are emerging fund managers who start off from, they have experience of working in big funds and they just move out and they start their funds. They have run funds and they also have connect with LPs. Whereas if there are fund managers who are starting fresh, like who were operators in the past or who were investment bankers or working in corporates, but if they want to support the entrepreneurs or invest in them, it's extremely challenging because emerging fund managers primarily entails two things. One is fundraising and second is fund deployment. Biggest challenge for emerging fund managers I see is fundraising, identifying the right LPs, telling your story, because your fund managers, you are selling yourself. You are promising an LP that, hey, I'm going to give you, 5x returns, 7x returns, 10x returns, and an LP is believing in you. So you don't have a product to sell. Yes, you are selling your strategy, but it's essentially the relationship that you are establishing with the LP. But even before establishing that relationship, fund managers are facing a lot of difficulties in who to reach out to, who are the true LPs that they should be talking to. In fact, at VC Nest, we started a series with potential LPs. We have invited fund of funds to share how they evaluate fund managers. And then we are also inviting institutionals, endowments to share their perspective on what they're thinking of emerging fund managers. But the first challenge is fundraising, and second is deal deployment, like getting into some good deals. These are the two big challenges. And third is storytelling. Even if a door opens up for an LP to believe in you, every fund manager has kind of similar story to tell, that this is my deal sourcing strategy and this is my fund deployment strategy. But how to differentiate in that and how to tell your story in a powerful manner is the challenge that I've seen in fund managers. And then getting into really good deals is a challenge, because as an emerging fund manager, you have to show your track record, but you don't have a track record. You're starting fresh and you also want to get into good deals. An LP wants to see your credibility. An LP wants to see that you are a thought leader, that the industry you're deploying in, you have knowledge, you have expertise. Unless you are able to showcase that, it gets very challenging. And also, number of emerging fund managers. See, the number of LPs has not increased significantly, but LPs are solicited by a large number of emerging fund managers. In last 2 years, the number of emerging fund managers has increased to 2,500, and the number is continuously increasing. There are more platforms like Cool Water Capital, VC Labs. We are seeing an uptick in the number of emerging fund managers, and these are soliciting the same LPs. If you're not going with your differentiated strategy, it's very hard to raise capital. And last 2 years were very challenging because there was not enough liquidity in the market. You can only get capital if there is liquidity, and not many companies were going public, and the stock market was, dwindling as well. So there were few challenges in overall macroeconomic conditions, but also the number of fund managers has increased significantly.
You've touched on many, many challenges, many important challenges here. When an emerging manager decides to start a new VC firm, they have two challenges. First is how do you get deal flow, and how do you raise money for the firm? The first one, usually they arrive with the confidence that they can get deal flow and they know how to work with founders, and they have some experience in the past, either as an angel investor or worked at a different firm. So that part, they may be right or wrong, but they have confidence that they know how to do it. But the second part, which is fundraising, many emerging managers don't have experience. Many of them don't even know who these LPs are, now let alone how to approach them, how to tell the story, various other things. Starting from there, and many other industry trends that you've mentioned, and the number of managers has increased, LPs have not increased. Actually, we don't know who these LPs are, so it's hard to even quantify whether the LP community has increased in size. I can see all of this forming the genesis for VC Nest. So what does VC Nest do?
One more challenge I want to bring again, because of this new innovation super cycle, Gopi, a lot of established fund managers or even private equity funds who are investing in later stages are now getting into deals early on. Because of this AI super cycle, many companies they don't need later stage funding because your all processes are automated. AI is doing the heavy lifting. And within a short span of time, we have seen this with companies like OpenAI, and with very few employees, you are able to get to multi-billion-dollar valuation. And that's why these private equity funds they're also getting into early stage, and that was not the case earlier. So even it looks easy that you can source good deals, but it is not. And even for endowments, they do not have enough trust and confidence in emerging fund managers, and also their check sizes are usually very big. They do not want to write smaller checks because then for them portfolio management becomes very challenging. And that's why institutionals do not touch emerging fund manager segment much. And also these growth stage funds and private equities are also now venturing into early stage. So the space overall is getting extremely crowded. And the genesis of VC Nest, of why we started that, was this big gap we saw in emerging fund managers ecosystem. For emerging fund managers, it's essential that they collaborate with others to not only exchange deals but also exchange that knowledge and information. We have multiple pillars here. Definitely, this entire industry thrives on relationship. We see industry overall, it's all about networking and relationship. So the first genesis is we do a lot of events, and these events are not just random events. These are focused events. As I mentioned earlier, we invite LPs to share their perspectives because many times we have seen that fund managers even do not know who right LPs are, how to approach them, what are the new programs that these LPs are launching. Last month, we invited Sapphire Ventures. They launched a program with CalSTRS, and many fund managers came to me and they said that they didn't even know about this program that they launched with CalSTRS for emerging fund manager. So these events are quite educational for fund managers, and it's helping them to understand LP's perspective. And second, we have been doing very curated VC startup mixers. As I said, University Avenue overall is a place for good founders. But even for VCs to get access to good deals, there has to be a platform. So we host a lot of startup VC mixers at VC Nest for startups to get access to good VCs and VCs to get access to good startups. And we are not doing just random mixers. We are actually focusing on multiple verticals so that this curating process is easier and also it's effective. So the focus on events is mainly on fundraising and deal sourcing. So that's why, we have launched these LP series and also these private VC startup mixers. And second is education. As a fund manager, you are emerging fund managers, especially, you're not a big team. You're a single GP or two GPs. You are trying to raise funds, you are trying to deploy, you are doing your due diligence on startups. And it's very important for you because you are managing others' finances to stay top on regulations, on compliances. So we have also been launching educational series with big fours like Deloitte, EY, with certain banks on all these audits, on compliances, on regulations. So that covers the educational sector. And third is thought leadership for fund managers to establish their credibility. LPs need to know that yes, they have domain expertise, and that's why when we do these verticalized private PC mixers, we also give these fund managers a chance to speak on their perspective. And as you are doing your podcast as VC Nest, we also want to do, maybe we can do that in collaboration, a chance for fund managers to market themselves, to establish their brand. And fourth is storytelling, which is a very important component. We just launched 2 months back, and there are so many plans on our roadmap. We have also been working with some executive coaches to help these fund managers prepare their story better. Because you knock so many doors and you kiss so many frogs, but you have to close some of these deals. And it's very important that your story is formulated right and it's told in a right manner.
VC Nest is only a month and a half old. It's a very, very new organization, and I can see that you've become so active and you've already produced so many high quality events and brought the community together. What is your long term vision? What will VC Nest look like? What do you want it to be?
I'm wearing both hats. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm an investor. And as an entrepreneur, this is not a company that I can say that is going to be a unicorn, this is going to go public. For me, the success truly is when all these emerging fund managers would say that, okay, I want to be a part of VC Nest. Like YC is for startup, VC Nest is for emerging fund managers. Everyone wanting to be a part of it and becoming a global organization supporting VCs and fund managers. But VC Nest also has a separate capital that we invest in startup founders, and we co-invest with many of our fund managers as well. And overall, our charter is to support the entrepreneurs that are sculpting the better tomorrow. And we want to do this with the fund managers because at the end their goal is also to invest in good companies, and we are helping these fund managers to invest better, to invest in companies that are shaping the better tomorrow, and we want to do that alongside them. This is our long term goal.
It's a very bold and ambitious long term goal indeed. There are many things changing in the venture capital ecosystem. If you had the power through your efforts at VC Nest, if you were to change one thing about how venture capital works today, what would you change to make this industry better?
See, even in venture capital, based on even when I was designing VC Nest as a platform, I interviewed so many fund managers on this concept and overall as an industry of what they think. Some fund managers just have a vision of maximizing their returns. If your vision is only to maximize returns, you would be squeezing the founder somehow. You just do not want to only focus on your returns. You also have to support the founders that are trusting you to be your partners in the journey. One thing, everyone looks at a venture world as an asset class where they can get multiple returns, but we also have to look on how we are supporting the founders in a meaningful manner. And second thing is, yes, I see a gap that many institutions, many endowments are not still not looking at emerging fund managers as an industry, and that needs to be changed because there are so many good companies that are funded by emerging fund managers. In fact, 2024 TechCrunch data shows that 30 unicorns out of 34 have been actually funded by emerging fund managers. So this asset class is very powerful in identifying the companies that are going to go public or that are going to have multi-billion dollar returns. There are more and more opportunities, and I think the bigger players in the industry have to allocate capital into smaller players. Only then this ecosystem would get richer and richer.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of emerging managers. And these are the VCs that will shape the future of venture capital industry. And they are the ones that work with founders at the earliest stages, well before they become unicorns. I'm glad that you highlighted how important it is to cultivate this community. We're coming towards the end of our conversation, and I want to ask you about your community involvement. Is there a non-profit organization you are passionate about? Which one?
I am actually involved with a lot of nonprofits. I sit on the board of IIT Bay Area Alumni Association. A lot of executives in the valley, like Sundar Pichai from Google and other big executives in multiple companies, are IITians. And it's actually a privilege for me to be a part of this organization. I have been associated with this organization since 2017. It's a very powerful community of executives, of technologists who are building great companies and who are working on phenomenal products, because we have more than 15,000 IITians who are working on some of the best companies technologies here. So it's a privilege to be associated with that organization. I started from environment and ventured into tech, and it happened through a nonprofit as well. It's called Overseas Volunteer for a Better India. I was working there, and that organization was serving farmers in India who were committing suicide. So I became a part of that nonprofit, and through that, I got connected to some of the techies in Silicon Valley, and that's how I got my first job in a cybersecurity company. So when you work for a good cause, something good happens to you as well. I think it's all karma.
Lochan, thank you very much for spending time with me today. What a fascinating journey, and I'm delighted to hear your arranged marriage brought you to the US and how you've embraced this new country, the new culture, new way of working, new way of living, and you are on to something great. Good luck, and I'm delighted to see that you are embarking on this journey to make a change in Silicon Valley.
Thank you so much. And I would say Silicon Valley embraced me more than I embraced Silicon Valley. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I hope you enjoyed listening to real life stories about early believers supporting ambitious entrepreneurs. Please subscribe to the podcast and post a review. Your comments will help other entrepreneurs find this podcast. I look forward to catching you at the next episode.